Hello everyone and welcome back to the Neurocalm Fatigue Summit, and I'm delighted to have with me today Dr. Dana Cohen, who's a medical doctor and internist who specialises in integrative medicine, and she also wrote a book called Quench, Beat Fatigue, Drop Weight and Heal Your Body through the new science of optimum hydration. And optimum hydration, I think, is what we're going to talk about today. So Dana, tell us about optimum hydration.
Hi, good afternoon. So let's start by saying I'm talking about when I talk about dehydration, we all live our lives in this sort of low-grade subclinical dehydration, sort of day in and day out. I'm not talking about overt dehydration where, you know, you've been throwing up all day and you need to get IV fluids, your eyes are rolling back in your head. That's different. That is, you know, we can define that. Doctors can define that. We know exactly what that looks like, and it's very treatable. This low-grade subclinical dehydration is what we're going to talk about today, and it's something that it's a little harder to define, and I'm going to ask that people need to live in their bodies, know what feels great, and I'm going to try to teach them how to optimally hydrate. And you know, the thing is, it's not about drinking more and more water every day. It's a little bit about eating your water. So we'll talk a little bit about that as well.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Thank you. So how do you define this? You know, you said it's difficult to define, but I assume you have a working idea of what this suboptimal dehydration looks like, how it lands, how it feels.
Yeah. So it's I wish there was a simple test. I wish there was a blood test or a blood pressure monitor or something that we could do and say, here it is, oh, you're subclinically. We don't have anything like that. So we have to look at sort of symptoms and signs of this low-grade dehydration. And sort of the big ones that maybe everybody knows is fatigue in the afternoon, you know, so much so that I often say that afternoon drop is not, and probably more often not related to a drop in blood sugar. You're more often probably dehydrated. So, and you're not hungry, you know, try hydrating better first, sort of staving it off before that happens. So, you know, feeling what your body, I'll give you some other things on what that means. But so fatigue is a big one, or brain fog is another big one. Cognition. We know that when you are, athletes, for example, runners, you know, when they come off a marathon, they're very lightheaded, they're not thinking clearly, they're brain fog, and you give them hydration and they're better. So those are some well-knowns: fatigue, brain fog, also the other things, constipation, headaches, those are the big things. But there are some signs you can look at. The one that a lot of people talk about is look at the color of your urine. You want your urine to be a nice light straw colored, not too dark, not too clear, because there is a problem. Some people can overhydrate, which we'll touch upon too. But I will say that the color of your urine is not the best thing to look at. It's sometimes worth it. You know, in the morning you look at your urine, it's really dark because it's been concentrating all night long. So you've been holding your pee all night long, you pee and it's concentrated. It's okay, it's not great. I think the single greatest thing that you can look at is your urine output. So how often are you urinating throughout the day? We're meant to urinate every 2 or 3 hours during our waking hours. And that is a phenomenal thing to really look at. I know there are days I'll sit at my desk for 8 hours straight, don't get up to pee, and I'm like, what am I doing? I know better than this, you know? So you need to hydrate enough so that you're getting up to pee. You also need to move freely, like, you know, muscle aches, joint pains. Those are some things to think about if you're low-grade dehydrated. Thirst. Let's talk a little bit about thirst, because while thirst is, if you're thirsty, you're too far gone. You need to go hydrate. However, we teach ourselves to override our thirst mechanism. Mm-hmm. You know, we often, if we're going for a long car ride, we don't want to drink too much because we don't want to have to stop to pee. And if you're working, you don't want to have to stop to pee, and which you're not doing anybody a favor. You have to get up and pee. It's good on so many levels. It makes you get up and move. It's hydrating. You're thinking clearer. So don't do that. The other thing is we lose our thirst mechanism as we get older. So it's not as sharp as it was when we were younger. So thirst is if you're thirsty, go drink and hydrate better. But it's telling me that you're not doing it right. We need to stave off that thirst before it even happens. What else can I tell you about? The one thing I definitely want to say before, I should have said this right before we started, and so relating to your summit, is that the single most important thing you can do to treat and prevent chronic disease is first learn how to hydrate. So it's that important to me. And it's, it is the basis of everything. It's the basis of homeostasis in our body. It's the basis of cellular health. It's the basis of detoxification. We can't detoxify if you're not hydrated. So before you go on any nutrition plan, any supplement, even any medication, first start here, always first. And the good news is that it's easy. There's nothing hard about this. It's really easy. It is the one thing I'm a stickler on, meaning I will give patients a nutrition plan, a diet plan. And I'm a big believer in that 80-20 rule. Give me 80% in the diet plan and I'm happy. Not so with hydration. This is a day in, day out thing, hour by hour, that you need to stay on top of. And so, because it is cumulative, by the way, long-term subclinical dehydration, the thing, exactly what we're talking about. So this low-grade day in, day out dehydration, long-term, is a risk factor for diabetes. It's a risk factor for, in turn, Alzheimer's disease, certain cancers, and then let alone chronic fatigue and constipation and all those other things and more. So really important. Hydration to me is super important and easy.
Fantastic. So can you maybe talk a bit about the balance between water and food? Because I think you mentioned the dangers of overhydration, and obviously we can wash too many salts and minerals out of our body and produce problems on the other side.
Yeah.
So what's the balance there? Because I think a lot of us know we need to drink water.
Yeah. So once again, it is a very individualized thing. People need to live in their bodies, not be cut off from the neck down, feel what it feels like to be hydrated. I don't know what that is for somebody. That could be 1 glass of water for one person a day is all they need, because they are eating a diet full of, hydrating vegetables, and they're moving, and they're drinking a little tea here and there, whatever it may be. I don't know. There are some people that can just do with 1 glass of water. There are some people who need more. So I don't know what that set point is for each individual person. I do know that I just want to talk a little bit about the overhydration, because I see this really often in my practice. And especially now there's this gallon water challenge going around where people are chugging gallons of water. And there's electrolyte, so what's happening is you're drinking all this, what I call bulk water, basically plain water with no electrolyte mixes, nothing in it. So plain bulk water they're drinking, and they're flushing out their electrolytes, and they're not replacing those electrolytes. So you're getting electrolyte disturbances. I see it often in my hot yoga patients, those patients that do a lot of hot yoga. So they're sweating, they're sitting in a really long yoga class, and they're healthy. So they're drinking tons of water all day long. And meanwhile they have leg cramps, and they'll often say to me, I can't quench my thirst. No matter how much I drink, I can't quench my thirst. And I say that to people, like, yes, that's me, because you're not doing it right. So what is the best way to do it? The book is basically about a plant-centric diet. So I am somebody who worked for Dr. Atkins. I am a big believer in a low-carb ketogenic diet, not for everybody, but for many people. However, we still need to eat vegetables and we need to eat a lot of vegetables. And a great way to do that is with green smoothies. So blended vegetables with some water, whatever else you want to put in there, chia seeds, lemon, berries, whatever, but more vegetables. So there is a research by a very world-renowned water researcher, Dr. Gerald Pollack, who has discovered that there's a 4th phase of water. This is the impetus of the book. This is why we wrote the book, because it was mind-blowing to me. we all know that water exists as liquid, ice, and vapor. We now know that there is another phase of water. He calls it easy water. Most people have heard of it as structured water or gel water. And basically the idea is how those H2O molecules, how they layer upon each other. And in that layering, they start to share electrons. So that water has different properties than regular water. So that electron sharing, it creates a charge, almost like a battery. It holds electrical energy. And it's believed that it's in that phase is how the water is in our cells intracellularly and how water exists in nature. So when you look at things like cactus plants or aloe plants, you open that up and there's literally all this gel that falls out. Now there's other materials in that gel, but that gel inside the aloe is loaded with gel water or structured water. So the idea is we want to get more of that in our bodies. We want to be able to structure water in our bodies too. And by doing that, we need fiber, we need minerals, we need electrolytes. So these are all the things to help get that water and hold on to that water better within our bodies. That's the whole idea of the book. So.
Fantastic. So when you say more vegetables, is this raw vegetables, cooked vegetables? Do you make a distinction?
No, it doesn't matter. So think about, I'm trying to think of what's a good vegetable. Okra. You cook okra and it becomes very mucilaginous. I love that word. Yeah. So that's a really hydrating thing. Even spinach, you wilt it or those kind of things. So it doesn't matter. However you can eat. Some people can't tolerate raw vegetables, too many raw vegetables, because their guts are a little bit messed up. So whatever it takes, we need to just get more vegetables in our diet, more plants, and think about, and just go back to what I said about how much are you urinating throughout the day? How's your energy? Are you moving better? Are you moving more freely? Are you peeing throughout the day? Does your pee look good in the color of it? And so those are the kind of things to do. I have a couple of tips I can give to your audience. I like to tell people to start the day with to front load our water. So 6 to 18 ounces first thing in the morning of water. I put a little squeeze of lemon in there. I sometimes put a little pinch of real salt. So real salt is, that's a brand, but it could be Himalayan pink salt. It could be rock salt, which is what real salt is, Celtic sea salt. That has the full spectrum of minerals, which is different than sodium, that's table salt, right? So you want the full spectrum of minerals, a little pinch of that in the water, suck it down, front load our water, soak our organs first thing in the morning. And then a green smoothie throughout the day. And this is a made up number. I don't have any science behind this, but I believe a green smoothie, so blended greens with water, and then whatever else you want to put in there, like to make it taste nice. I don't do yogurt or a nut milk, which you can, or even protein powder. I don't do that because then it becomes a meal. But a green smoothie, one a day, is probably as hydrating as 3 glasses of the same amount of water. From a cellular level. That's my made up number, but I believe that to be true. And it's life-changing, for people who've never done this, it's life-changing. It truly can change your life. You're getting, all those, lots of greens and vegetables. There was a recent study that eating 30 different plants a week, and that could be any kind of plants. It could be nuts and seeds and grains and vegetables and fruits and spices. So all those things, 30 different types a week, which is actually, when you add a green smoothie, you could probably get 8 in a green smoothie, just in that one green smoothie, and mix it up throughout the week. Those people had the healthiest gut microbiomes than those who didn't do that. So what a great easy way to do that. I think the green smoothie revolution is not over. And I used to be afraid to when I speak to especially audiences of other doctors and integrative doctors, like, oh God, they're going to start rolling their eyes at me. But the truth is, we all need to be reminded. And this is simple stuff. You'll know when you start hydrating this way, you'll know in 2 days how much better you can feel,
Yeah, I was going to ask you, what are the typical signs of optimum hydration? What would you expect?
So it depends, it depends on the truth is, the more ill somebody is, the better and the quicker they're going to feel better by doing this. But those things, improved fatigue, moving more fluidly, which I love, literally though. So ease of movement, clearer thinking, not getting that afternoon crash. It's hard to say, especially if somebody has, a chronic illness, Lyme disease or whatever, but you will feel better. You'll notice a difference. And in the long term, whatever then you're going to do to help treat that chronic disease, you're going to be so much better off and so much easier and quicker to heal when you are properly hydrated.
Mm. And you mentioned this link between hydration and movement has come up a couple of times. Does it work the reverse way as well? Is movement important to the hydration process in the body?
Oh, at 100%. That's exactly. So this is kind of exciting to me. There was a French, I believe it was a plastic surgeon many years ago who, not many, 10 years ago, 8 years ago, who decided to put a camera under the skin of a living person specifically to study fascia. Fascia is that connective tissue that surrounds every cell, every organ in our body. It's everywhere. Before this, we never really studied fascia. We would, in medical school, we would break through, go to the organ, go to the vessel, and get rid of all that dried, desiccated stuff. And what he found, and what's fascinating, is that fascia is a hydraulic pump. So it moves fluid throughout the body. So when we do this, we're moving fluid up and down. When we're doing this, we're moving fluid up and down our spine. So the idea, we've always been told you have to move your joints to lubricate them. Now we really understand, like, one of the reasons why we're moving hydration in and out. So squeezing, twisting, turning, you're moving fluid up your spine. So yeah, movement is, I love this saying, another reason why sitting is the new smoking. We're squelching delivery, we're stopping delivery of hydration to our periphery. And there have been studies where they've shown where they have dehydrated human subjects, only 2%, which is we get to all the time in our day, a 2% loss of hydration, very easy to get to. So they would dehydrate these subjects and then do muscle biopsies, vessel biopsies. And what they showed in these vessels is that the damage from 2% dehydration is the same as what smoking a cigarette would do to that vessel.
Wow.
Yeah. So once again, why I'm a stickler on staying on top of your hydration all day long, day in, day out, hour by hour. It's the one thing that I don't compromise on.
Yeah, it's phenomenally important. And I'm amazed by the fascia study. I think that's fantastic. I mean, this is an interesting challenge for some people with chronic fatigue. They find it very difficult to move generally.
Yeah.
But it seems as though adequate hydration through diet and fluid combined with gentle movement. I mean, you're not talking about athleticism here, are you?
No, we made up the movements. We call them micro movements and I mean, they're made up things. Like, this is a micro movement. It's just getting those joints to move. I mean, exercise is a completely separate thing. We need to try to exercise, but micro movements, twisting when we can, getting up in the morning and from head to toe, try to move every joint in different directions. It's not that hard. We lose movements as we get older too. Yes. Babies are born with, I'm making this number up, 300 different types of movements. And by the time we're 40, we have 40 different types. So we need to keep them, you got to move it or lose it. And so these are simple things that we need to do, that are, there was just also one more recent study that came out. There's a muscle in our calf called the soleus muscle. And it underlies the big muscle in the back, the gastrocnemius muscle. That soleus muscle doesn't fatigue the way our other muscles fatigue. So when you're sitting all day long, if you put your heels on the floor and just lift up your heels while you're sitting, it improves blood sugar. You have to do it for a long time. but there are relationships between improving glycemic control, blood sugar control, just by doing that. So fascinating. Everybody's going to be talking about this study now. Really, really interesting stuff that's going on with that.
What's exciting to me about what you're saying is this sense again that's come up in some of the other conversations in this, is the body is this incredibly intelligent field of systems and intelligences that are constantly interacting. I mean, the idea that micro movements would hydrate the body, which in turn would affect fatigue levels and brain function, it's absolutely wonderful to think of. Yeah. Both the complexity and the simplicity of it,
I know.
the sheer beauty of it. And one of the things that's really exciting about what you're saying here is it's such a simple win, but it seems to reach into so many different physiological systems.
Yeah, I love my co-author. One time we were riding in an elevator together, and she starts looking at the ceiling and kissing the ceiling. I'm like, "What are you doing?" She's like, "I'm doing micro movements." And she like, you know, she just sort of stays on, like, you know, it's just always in the back of her mind, you know. So when you're sitting, you just, you know, and maybe keep something there to remind you of doing that, you know, like your water bottle, you know, and then you're looking at it, and then you remember to fidget or just sort of move and dance. And it's funny because when I give these lectures, I look out and the whole audience is starting to like sort of move and fidget. And yeah, and there's actually fidgeting studies, and people who fidget live longer than people who don't.
Oh, that's so interesting.
Yeah.
That's so interesting.
Yeah.
I'll have to tell my son that he's a chronic fidget.
That's great. And tell his teachers to leave him alone. Like, you know,
he's an adult now, but he still fidgets like.
But like as kids, like teachers are like, stop moving, let them move, let them get up, let them walk around, and then come back, and let them go get a drink, you know, like yeah. It's
well, it's that whole model, isn't it, of the body that education assumes that, you know, it's really about the brain, and the body's just this thing that the brain sits on and contains it. So the body's got to behave itself while the brain takes in all the information. Of course, we're learning that the brain is distributed throughout the whole of the body, that the body itself is highly intelligent field of sensing and awareness, and that it's kind of ridiculous to try and separate them in any way. And the fact that we talk about mind-body medicine, it just reflects the fact that we had this rupture that should never really have probably been there to start with.
Right. Yeah, it's fascinating. I think I love just something I thought about before we even started. I don't even know it was going to come up. You know, you think about a placebo, right? So do you, that word, a placebo, is when you give somebody a fake pill and they think it's the real pill, and it has an effect on them physiologically. And that is just the most thing that I think is so simple to explain how our thoughts can be healing. And, you know, I think people need to know about the simplicity of all of this, and like sort of just relent to it, like accept, you know. So I think when you're talking about chronic fatigue, I think people need to really hear that our minds are incredibly powerful tools.
Absolutely.
And there's no medication can do what our minds can do as far as a treatment. Our bodies are incredible machines, and you give them the tools, you give it the tools, what it needs to heal. And one of those tools is our thoughts, you know, and what we eat and what we drink. And it's there is no better medication. There's no better.
Is it true? I read somewhere, and you're bound to know more about this than I do, Dana, but is it true that the visual cortex, if you access the visual cortex through a visualization or something, it can affect your whole physiology? Like, it's really exceptionally powerful.
Oh, I think there's research on that. I mean, I haven't looked at that research, but I do know there's research on that, changing brain waves, and in a very powerful way that that I'm not an expert in, but yeah, I think there is research there. It's crazy.
Ties in very strongly with my interest in hypnosis, but that's a whole other kind of ballgame. But it's all related. It's all this, you know, the kind of idea of shifting focus and direction, and really using the full capacity of the sensory input and output that we have as humans from the brain and the body to actually shift our entire experience, which actually has material, it emerges materially, physiologically in the body. I mean, it's incredibly empowering, isn't it, to know that?
Well, I think in my practice, I think it's the missing link. You know, I give people nutrition and supplements, but I think the brain connection is the missing ingredient in a lot of people. And it's hard. I don't know how to educate on this. So I think it's super important in the work that you're doing. And I think it is the missing ingredient for a lot of people.
I think it is, and there are quite a lot of people working on autonomic nervous system functioning using brain retraining methods, and including psychological brain retraining methods. So it's kind of out there, and I guess it's a case of how it all converges to help particular people, because obviously we're talking about multi-layered realities. So I'm hearing then that the one practical insight you would really land on people with fatigue is to hydrate, both through fluids and food and micro movement. Is that's
in a nutshell? In a nutshell, yes. So when I talk about food, the one thing I try to say is you need to stay away from processed foods, from high sugar foods. So real food, lots of vegetables, lots of plants. Think about chia seeds. Chia seeds in our book are sort of the star of the show, because they are incredibly hydrating. They hold onto fluid. If you put them in water, they become gelatinous. So plant-centric diet, some water, a green smoothie a day. You need to move and stay on top of it. You need to be making sure that you're urinating every 2 or 3 hours while you're awake.
That's fantastically empowering, simple, accessible information. Thank you so much, Dana. And I love your statement that we're all bodies of water. I think that's a wonderful statement to hang on to. And I believe you've got a gift for the audience, do you want to tell them about that?
I have if you come to my website, sign up for my email. And my emails are fun. They're really very personal and fun stuff. So it's just a 1-day meal plan, a very hydrating meal plan. It's lovely, all written out for you, and just an idea of then, how to like, what's a great way of eating in a day, and then you can follow it from there.
Thank you so much. That's fantastic. So everyone, grab that. It will be below the video, and you can link through and see more of Dana's wonderful work. Dana, thank you so much on behalf of us all for coming along and being so generous with your time and your amazing insights.
Thank you.